So Phyllis is at a family reunion, and so you're stuck with me doing the reading today. From Emmett Fox for September 8, from Emmett Fox Around the Year, titled The Art of Concentration. The only subject that matters is getting an understanding of truth, developing our souls. But in order to develop our souls, we must have some knowledge of the power of concentration. If you can learn and practice right concentration, there is no good thing in the universe that you cannot attain. Concentration means literally bringing to a common center. Until you can put your attention where you want it, you have not become master of yourself. You will never be happy until you can determine what you are going to think about for the next hour. First, make your body comfortable, then tell it to be good until you come back for it. Concentration has nothing to do with the muscles. This has nothing to do with the blood vessels. Concentration means thought control. It is a purely mental thing, and if you are rightly concentrating, you will find that you are actually relaxed. People imagine that concentration means holding on to one thought. The human mind is so constituted that it is impossible to do that. True concentration is a movement of the mind along a predetermined path. 19 people out of 20 people who say they have failed in concentration have been trying to stand still mentally. All people do have good powers of concentration, but not when they want them. You always concentrate on what you are interested in. And then from Philippians, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. So today we're going to continue the conversation on 21 ways to build a stronger spiritual life. So this is part 2. And in part 1, we covered the first 21 ways. And let's see, did I bring that with me? No, I didn't. Right here. So let me just hit the highlights of the first 4 to remind you. 1 is be a river, not a swamp. 2 is identify blessings in your life. 3 is be like Moses, speak words of blessings. And 4 is nurture a shared prayer life. Okay, so now we're coming to number 5, which is take a step of faith. Now this is built on a writing by Victor Parachin, and I'm using that as the stepping point for our conversation. So 5 is take a step of faith. Spiritual growth, he writes, means taking a leap of faith from time to time. Rather than trying to get everything in place before you start something important, why not follow God's leading and allow the plan to evolve? This means taking a step of faith and trusting God to provide what may be needed for success. Now, that seems simple enough, but I think it's important to understand the underpinnings of belief that are required for you to be comfortable or able or willing to take this step. In order to take a leap of faith, you first must have an internal comprehension that the divine has the best in mind for you. That you can, if you believe that, if you have, belief isn't the right word here, if you have the internal grokking, the internal in your heart, or in your subconscious, as we talk about in Lift, understanding that you are part of the divine, that all is yours, then to step into the night fog of the unknown, the leap of faith, is not such a big leap. It doesn't feel like trying to leap over the Grand Canyon when you're likely to fall down because there's no way anyone but evil can get over that Grand Canyon. But rather the comfort in knowing that this is all part of you, and this step, even though you don't know exactly where it's leading, is part of your divine being shared with the divine. Now, this also requires that you have a flexibility of belief and action. Um, because, as we'll talk a little later, the ultimate result to get to your goal isn't what we would perceive as a straight line. Um, you may remember previous conversations where I referred to the rich man who comes to Jesus saying, "What must I do to join you?" And Jesus says, "Give away all that you hold dear." Well, what do we hold most dear? Our tightly held beliefs. To take a leap of faith may require that you set aside tightly held beliefs. As you are taking the leap of faith, you may find that you need to change some expectations or some beliefs. And I've learned from my own experiences in this life that following a nudge to a leap of faith, not only does it not necessarily take you in a straight line to where ultimately the divine has in mind for you, but you might find yourself feeling that this leap of faith you've taken, this step into the night fog of the future, has led you to a dead end, or has led you to something that just quickly petered out. But my experience, and I've found similar experiences recounted to me by others and in writings, is that each leap of faith sometimes is like crossing a river on the exposed stones. Leap, 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 leap. It doesn't feel like a straight line, but you are ultimately going to get to the other side. And when you have the comfort that you are ultimately going to arrive there, irrespective of what this particular leap is or this particular action, then you can more comfortably take those steps into what I think of as the night fog, the uncertainty of the future. Because we can't see it. I can't see what's going to be here in an hour. I have a hypothesis. When you take a leap of faith, you may not even have a hypothesis. It's, oh boy, this is what I feel called to do. Well, let me give my own life as an example, because it certainly is weird enough in terms of the experiences. Here's the mix of leaps or life steps I've ended up taking that got me here. Who'd have thunk it? For instance, in high school, a Presbyterian minister at the church where I was going took all of us high schoolers to experience the worship services of different other churches so we could see what they were like. And he took us to a Quaker church, a Quaker meeting actually. And I never went back to that church because home was this silence, this connection, this, I understand now, mystical connection with the divine. I learned to drive a tractor trailer, drove a tractor trailer on regional routes for a while, worked in a typesetting shop, ran a print shop, worked in an ad agency as their creative director, toured on the road doing education performances for 20 years, had all sorts of different people teaching me how to be a better writer. One Friday night, living in Oxford, Ohio, I was compelled to drive to a town I'd never been to before, didn't know anything about it, to find a church someone had casually mentioned to me 3 years earlier, or maybe 4. I didn't remember the name of the church, didn't know where it was. I had to drive there. And I found it, even though it was at the back of a decrepit shopping center by the loading dock down a 20-foot corridor. There was no sign. And I open the door, walk in the middle of the service, and the minister up at the pulpit stops her sermon, points to me and says, "Your grandfather always wanted you to be a minister. You're going to become one of ours." Well, I'm Quaker, from the type that doesn't have ministers. And look at me. Yeah. So the capstone, maybe we'll add, is the fact that in my 20s I was diagnosed crazy, you'll never be normal, good luck. The result of all these different pieces ultimately fitting together, I have you, my wonderful spiritual community, to walk with and share with. I ended up developing a process for helping people, many of whom have been diagnosed as incurable, heal. Every piece of the things I mentioned to you somehow has played a part in getting here. And it was, at one point, in the George Lobster translation of the Bible, Christ on the cross cries out, I can't remember the words, Eli, Eli, lama something else, which the Western Church translates as, why hast thou forsaken me? Lobster insists, my God, for this I was spared. Now think about that in your walk. All the different things that have happened. And a couple times I had occasion to reflect on how many times in my life there have been situations I've been in where I could easily have ended up dead. And the divine protected me one way or another. My God, for this I was spared. Each of us, in your journey, you may not have arrived there yet, but there's going to be the aha moment of, oh, this is the culmination of all these experiences I've had. This is what I am called to do with it, or what I can do with it for the betterment of this world, and ideally the betterment of yourself. God doesn't want you to suffer yourself to make the world better. I am absolutely certain Jesus Christ had no idea that he was going to end up. He was just trying to help the poorest of the poor survive in a world that was completely against them, far worse than it is now. Now, I hope that never happens to you. But each of us, one way or another, in our experiences, if we choose, will find the way that all these experiences we've had, we can use to lift this world to a better place, to lift individuals to better places. And I'm not talking about the kind of things like Joel What's-His-Face on the TV, who mints tons of money and refuses the flood victims to access his church because they might dirty it up. I'm talking genuine lifting up, making the world a better place. So that's number 5. Number 6 sort of feeds into what I've been talking about. Parachin calls it restore someone's faith. And he writes, today make time to heal a wounded heart, to extend kindness to someone who really needs a friend, or to help gather up pieces of a broken dream. Today, and I'll say every day, do whatever you can to radiate God's unconditional love. Now, I want to, that's simple in and of itself. But he leaves out a part that I'm going to mention anyway. We're not talking about you being the hero coming to rescue, because that's self-aggrandizement. That's not making the world a better place. The Quakers didn't do that. The Quakers were there, they cared, they spoke to you as a child of God. They did not seek power, self-aggrandizement, look at me, I'm doing good. That's all you. That's not lifting the world up. And, if you're familiar with the Karpman drama triangle, rescue, victim, and persecutor, if you're on that, what looks like a contribution is actually going to be toxic to those around you. So, in restoring someone's faith, in helping to heal a wounded heart, extending kindness, do it easily, do it gently, do it without seeking a focus on yourself or a spotlight or recognition. As Christ talks about praying in your closet, praying in secret, giving in secret, rather than doling it out in public where you can get lots of praise. That's a simple enough example, if you will. Don't try to be the hero, the magic person, the person who's going to take care of it. Rather, be the healing salve. Be the love that enables someone else to pick their pieces up, perhaps just because you cared enough to listen when they were grieving, to speak words of comfort to them or encouragement. That's gentle, that's loving. That's what he's talking about here. And from my standpoint, that's also speaking to the spark of God in each person, helping them to hear it and grow it in themselves. And then step 7, be a grateful person. Now, step number 2 was acknowledge your benefits, or acknowledge your blessings. This is somewhat different. I'm going to read what he says first. Start every day with a morning prayer of gratitude to God for the gift of this new day. Do this even if the day ahead appears ominous. Conclude every day with an evening prayer of gratitude to God for the gift of the preceding hours. And do this even if you've had a tough day. In its simplicity, if you're breathing when you got up, yeah, that's worth being grateful. If you're still breathing before you go to bed, hey, that's worth being grateful to, too. And all the breaths in between. So, counting your blessings is an active thing that you do, at least the way I do it, every time a blessing happens. Thank you, God. Nothing wrong with that. That's what step 2 is. This is a general sense of just plain gratitude for all that is in existence now, that has been in existence in the past, that is to come. The expectation that all good is yours, which is what Emmett Fox talks about again. And we might say that his talk about concentration, that fits with what we're talking about here. The moving of joy and gratitude in our concentration. Be aware also, as you give this gratitude, of any non-gratitude parts of you, self-obstructing parts, because so many of us have had that tucked into our teachings as we were growing up. Oh, this is too good for me, or I have to be really good, or God's not going to bless me, or God's going to take it away. Anything like that needs a healing. Whether you go directly to God, whether you use lift-on therapy, whether you talk with a friend, one way or another, if you have any of those obstacles, they need to be gone. And part of it is just being grateful and knowing you deserve the good that you are expressing the gratitude and the grateful expectations for. And then finally, the last one I'll talk about today is called Share the Journey. And this is what Parachin writes. Hook up with one other person who is seeking to grow spiritually. Agree to meet once a week for a period of time to study and reflect on spiritual matters. A friend of mine who is a busy executive in Toronto, Ontario, met for 6 months with another man to do Bible study. And what the man, there's a quote here, no matter how hectic our schedules, we always met each week during our lunch hour at a downtown church that kindly provided us with a room for our meeting. Those were good months when a lot of spiritual growth took place, he says. Now, I count myself as incredibly lucky to have a partner in Phyllis who has her spiritual walk and is strong in it, just as I do. And we're not diametrically opposed. She's not a die-hard Pentecostalist, for instance. But we have separate paths, some sense of separate beliefs, and we each can share with the other what we're thinking about, what our concerns were. And we take time for that. Most days, maybe it's just 5 or 10 minutes, or some silence, or both of the above. I'm lucky that way. But that doesn't mean you can't find someone to share that with. A partner, a colleague, someone at church. Heck, you've got all these wonderful people who are on the spiritual path and will dig it. And you could arrange Zoom meetings. You know, you can get Zoom for free for $45, for free for up to 45 minutes. That's enough for a weekly meeting of spiritual things where you share what you've been reading or new realizations or understandings you've had. This is one where you need to be somewhat active to find the person with whom you can share. But don't let the fact you don't immediately have someone scare you. You just call on the divine to help you find the person who's right for you and right for the two of you right now. And to be clear, you don't need identical twins. You don't want to be identical twins in your spiritual path. Phyllis reads to me from the meditation sources and the daily prayers that she uses. I read to her from whatever I happen to come across that gives me an aha moment, or sometimes the thing that I'm thinking about to possibly make a talk. I've got this idea, I'm not sure what to make of it, but let's explore it together. So there's more than a few times when I'm giving you the talk, she's already heard the underpinnings of it as I was trying to see how I was going to talk about it. Now, I'm not claiming that I think it through, but by talking with her, I'm open to more leading from the divine and more understanding. So we're not talking just an intellective process. I don't recommend just an intellective process. But the intellective plus the intuitive plus the spiritual input from the divine together can give you a new grasp of some aspect of your relationship with and in God. And in doing this sharing with someone, each of you will have new challenges, new experiences brought by the other to explore, to help you strengthen your spiritual walk, strengthen, broaden your sense of comprehension or connection with this divine being, whom so many of us call God. And what fun that is. So, now this is number 8 of 21. We've got a ways to go yet. We thank you, O Divine One, for creating the space for this community to gather together, providing the technology for us to gather together, and allowing us to share one another's joys, one another's challenges, and to support each other in our walk through this world and our seeking to do better for this world. We thank you for this time you provided today, for the love we've been able to share, for the wisdom we've been able to share, for the joy we've been able to share. We thank you for providing new great things for us as we depart from here and as we wander through this world, taking leaps of faith, seeking to serve, until we are able to return again to this community. For all the good you provide, for all the wonderful love that you allow us to experience, dear God, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we all say, Amen.